It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, if you look on that gigantic, sharp, interactive board, you'll see the Ricoh logo. Above it, I'm asking the question, who else is questioning if Ricoh can actually increase profits? I can't be the only one thinking that. And, folks, I got to be honest with you. I really don't believe Ricoh can increase their profits. I believe Ricoh doesn't understand how to build a strategy that's long-term. I wanted to do a little bit more research. I did an episode about 10 days ago. Today's kind of piggybacking off of that one, as we prepare for Ricoh to issue their second quarter numbers. Those numbers will be out in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how they are for their first half of the year, which ends March of 2025. I don't expect any home runs. And as a matter of fact, I expect when they end their year in March of 2025, we're going to see probably a pretty big impairment charge. Ricoh, when I'm doing this analysis, just seems like they don't know how to build a strategy, and they're always trying to put out fires. In other words, they have a bad year, and now they're going to address it, and they're going to tell you what they're going to do, like in the next year. And it just doesn't seem like they can think long term. And back in 2017 and 2018, when they had that disastrous impairment charge, remember that? I talked about it in the last episode. I talked about how they contributed some of that impairment charge to Mindshift, their IT services business, and how they had to reevaluate its profitability. And then what did they do? They went into Europe since the global pandemic and started buying up all kinds of IT companies and services companies. When you look at their financials, they're not even making any money with that. It's concerning because they're repeating old habits, and I don't believe they can make a long-term plan. So without any further ado, let's jump on the board. I'll share my thoughts with you. I wanted to go back to 2011. I got this chart out of Microtrends, and I titled it A 14-Year Disaster Approaching 15 Years of Failed Dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, Ricoh just cannot produce operating profit that's substantial enough. And I've talked about this a lot, but look at this. From 2011, you know, they had one quarter, they got the margin up to 14.15%. Fantastic. And then it just, you know, barely above the line. 2018, 2017, we had some problems. 2020, during that global pandemic, 21 time frames, we had some problems. And folks, and here we are, we're just right at the line. You know, 2.8%, 3.5, 3.9, maybe one year out of that. This year, they're projected to do 2.8. I don't believe they'll even come in with that. What's the issue? And it just seems to me that if Ricoh would have thought through this back in 2017 and 2018, they wouldn't be in the position they are today. But I think in that time frame of 2017 and 2018, Ricoh just cared about what was going to happen in 2019. What's going to happen in 2020? And because they had no long-term strategy, a global pandemic happened. And then they responded by doing what? Doubling down on IT services and software solutions that weren't really working out for them with the Mindshift deliverable, right? I wanted to go through the presentation they put together for the FY, which ended March of 2018. This would be for the 2017 year. That $1.2 billion impairment charge. You know, they talk about how it came in less. Now, you do the math on the yen, it was 26.8 million less than they thought it was. That was like a big deal to them. That's craziness. But it was in this time frame that Ricoh really should have got their strategies together. Here we are, September 12th of 2024, and I've talked about this in the previous episode, but we're going to cut payroll by 3%. We're going to really focus on figuring out how to be this digital services company, the same thing they talked about a couple of years ago. Let me just read the top part of this. Background: to build a business management structure benefiting a digital services company, the company has been working on a corporate value project since April of 2023. April of 2023. Ricoh, I just got to say this to you. Maybe in 2018, Ricoh should have put a profitability plan in place, a strategy in place. I mean, it just seems to me we're putting something in place since April of 2023, and Ricoh's been struggling for a long time. It's just like this is another reaction. I'm looking at this reduction in force, 2,000 employees leaving 3% of their force. I wanted to look back a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, I went back to the year 2018. In 2018, Ricoh cut its force from 105,600 employees down to 97,900, a reduction of 7,700 employees, 7.3%. Do y'all remember that? I remember that. And with this new cut, ladies and gentlemen, that's over a 20% reduction from 2018, where they're going to end up for FY 2024. So when they finalize this, we're talking about a 20% reduction. But what if in 2018, Ricoh told the whole world, we're going to reduce our workforce by 20% by the year 2024. Here's our plan. And you could all say, well, man, they didn't know that was going to happen. They didn't know how much to do. Well, at the end of the day, because they don't think it through, they have no strategy. Everybody gave Xerox all kinds of crap because they came into the marketplace and said they were going to reduce their workforce by 15%. Because they knew that's what it was going to take. And here Ricoh, what are they doing? Let's reduce it 7% back in 2018. They've reduced it over the period since then. Now we're coming back. We're going to reduce it 3% more. And who are these people that are leaving? You got rid of 20% of your workforce. And you probably needed to do that. There's probably some more people that need to probably go. But what are you doing as a company to replace these people so you can go out into the marketplace and sell all these services you want to sell that you're not making any money on? Because obviously you need to do something different in that approach, right? So they talk about where we're going to be in 2024. They have a one-time cost of $107.3 million in early retirement payments. They got $174.4 million one-time cost in their restructuring. So they're going to have a one-time cost of $281.7 million. I just got to ask Rico the question, total of one-time cost or cost of indecisiveness? And what else are you going to add to those unordinary costs as you close out your year in March of 2025? Etra, Ricoh, Toshiba coming together in the manufacturing, and I really believe at this point in time that Ricoh needs to rethink this strategy. And maybe Ricoh needs to look at Toshiba Tech as their arm to get their products and services into the marketplace. Maybe Ricoh needs to look at Toshiba Tech as becoming their largest dealer in the world. And maybe Ricoh themselves needs to get out of the business of delivering their products and their software and their services to end users and allow others to do that. If Toshiba Tech is not going to be a manufacturer anymore, which they're not because they're going to do all that with Ricoh, maybe Toshiba Tech can deliver into the marketplace all of the Ricoh products and services as Ricoh's direct branch, if you will, but self-controlled, self-governed. Maybe that's the strategy for Ricoh. Does Toshiba Tech and the other OEMs deliver more DocuWare into the marketplace than Ricoh does? And I bring up DocuWare because DocuWare is an interesting example of Ricoh's nuttiness in their talk track. DocuWare was like a $60 million company when Ricoh bought them. And they acted like this was going to change their whole entire company. It's one little component of digital transformation. And it's a pretty small component at that. And, I just read this article from DocuWare talking about how they had a 17% global revenue growth. And I got to be honest with you, DocuWare, this is it's just pointless. And the fact that none of our other analysts want to call this out is kind of crazy to me. How the hell do you tell the whole world you had a 17% global growth in revenue when you don't tell us what the damn revenue is? I mean, what the hell? Anybody could say that. Oh, 17% growth. What does that mean? What does that mean in dollars? More importantly, what does that mean in profitability? I want to do some math. When Ricoh bought DocuWare, it was a $60 million business, ladies and gentlemen. When they closed that deal, for the following year, Ricoh has 7 months worth of that revenue, which is about $35 million. Ricoh says that the FY 2020 that they had a $492 million revenue in their applications business, which 7 months of DocuWare would have been in that number. Ricoh also say they had a 7.3% growth that year, which is $36 million, which is the same amount of money that DocuWare was for 7 months, or about $35 million. So it's not like Ricoh grew their applications business. They bought a company and added the revenue to the applications business. And if Ricoh doesn't want to tell the whole world what DocuWare is doing in the year 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, then DocuWare shouldn't be allowed to run around and talk about how they 17% growth. Now, back in 2018, they talked about their growth. They talked about their growth actually in 2019 because they were a publicly traded company before Ricoh bought them, and they said it's 17% growth, and they gave you the actual numbers. That's how I know when Ricoh bought them, they were only a $60 million company. If y'all don't show the numbers, quit telling people how much you grew. It's stupid. Because, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the revenue and what's going on with Ricoh and their digital services business, and I don't need to repeat all of this because I've talked about it numerous times, but they talk about how reoccurring sales, $2.2 billion, is 40% of the revenues are reoccurring. I'm asking how much is DocuWare in there? It's a really small part of that number, right? But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, with cloud software applications, reoccurring revenue growth is automatic through all managed service providers. I don't care what managed service provider you talk to, they've had revenue growth, and that revenue growth and reoccurring revenue is based on cloud applications that they're reselling. That's a fact. It's being profitable and delivering these applications that counts. And Ricoh, they dump all this stuff together, office printing, office services. They come in with a 2.2% operating profit on $12 billion in total revenue. $12 billion in total revenue for office printing and office services, combined number, operating profit of 2.2%. Seriously. It's pitiful. And then, ladies and gentlemen, they're in this first quarter. They're at a 0.18% operating profit. And now, what are they doing? You know, it's like a DocuWare. They added 2 other companies to DocuWare. So they're out there buying up revenue. All this revenue they're buying. But they can't produce any operating profit. Telling the whole world they want to be a services company. Remember the massive roll-ups of distribution to end users and the roll-up of OEMs? Do you remember when Ricoh bought Lanier? And Lanier was not an OEM. Lanier was a marketing company that sold product into the marketplace. They were a lot like Xerox. Okay, they didn't make the machines. At one point in time, Toshiba actually made a hell of a lot of Lanier machines. There was a point in time where Lanier actually sold more Toshiba machines than Toshiba did. And then when the world started going digital, Ricoh kind of got there first. Lanier started using Ricoh. They were sourcing their machines from Ricoh. But they bought Lanier, they bought Icon, 2 massive distribution channels to end users. They bought the OEM Savin, they bought the OEM Gestetner. All this was around print. Something Ricoh was born in, right? They failed at something they should have done successfully. And when they had the big impairment charge in that 2017-2018 timeframe, when they told the whole world, yeah, we got to rethink what we're doing. Delivering to the end users is competitive. Digitalization is transforming our customers. They knew all this back in 2017-2018. That's why they exited from Icon for the most part. Remember that? All that distribution going back to dealers. Who believes Ricoh will succeed at services? If you believe that, next question, will they make any damn money? Because there's zero proof in either based on their past disasters. That's just a fact. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Konica Minolta, we got Ricoh. What happened to these 2 once prominent industry players? These were 2 prominent industry players. We got Konica Minolta, I believe, any day now. We're going to see them just go away and someone's going to own them. Ricoh's right behind them. These are the 2 worst producing operating profit players in our space. What happened to these companies? Why doesn't our industry want to discuss this with more detail? They should, because we need to understand what happened so it doesn't happen to some of the other folks out there. And everybody watching me knows this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.